Derrick, and I'm definitely addicted to alcohol. What up, my people? What up, y'all? Wi-Fi. What's going on? Yeah, Kevin, Kevin, you know I love you, man. Yeah, Kevin. When I first met Kevin, first saw Kevin, it was that energy of like, when you're in kindergarten and you see your best friend, and it's like, hey, you run and you hug. That's my boy, man. I know me and Kevin would have been tearing these streets up because we are in these rooms, service. I've always seen him in service. He's always doing some type of service for the fellowship, and man, he's just an inspiration. I love you to death. And thank you, Terry, man. Terry's another one, just that energy, just good people, I know it's going to be a great meeting when I hear pew, pew. When I hear that, I know we're going to have a good time. My people is here, and there's a lot of people out here, that I love, and y'all know I love you, Bobby, Ezekiel, all these, Bill, man, Alika, man, Kathy, what? Just all good energy, people who I light up when I see in the meetings, and I'm grateful to be a part of a fellowship where I see people and I can relate to people, and I'm finally feel like I'm a part of something, for my whole life, you know, I'll say since I was a kid, I was probably addicted to the life, that lifestyle, you know, that the beat of the streets, even though, my mom, she did not want me to participate in none of the hood activities that were going on around me. I still wanted to be a part of it. Like, it was like that even pulled me more into it. I'm the only boy in a family of two sisters and my mom. And my mom was Creek, Native American. She was born the same year Bill was writing the Big Book, So my mom, she actually she was in her 40s when she had me. So there was that generation gap. I don't know if you realize that, like, all your cousins are grown, and your cousins' kids are your age, and you're the first cousin to their father or their mother. And so it was always that disconnect there inside the family unit. And my mom grew up during some of the toughest times of this country to be a black woman. And she raised us with an iron fist. My mom was a gun-toting, Bible-carrying Texan, my mom pulled a pistol out at church. That was my mom's energy, and growing up with a mother who suffered from that dis-ease and that restless, irritable, and discontentment without a solution. It was hard for me to really get comfortable in my own skin. It was just that weirdness, that displacement, especially when she was like, yeah, you ain't hanging out with none of these kids out here in this neighborhood. You are not going to be a product of Oak Cliff, which is the neighborhood I grew up in, Dallas. Like, you are not going to be an Oak Cliff boy. And I was like, Mama, they having fun. And she was like, you know how you gonna have fun? You gonna play the cello. Right. I mean, I already look like a little Cabbage Patch Kid with, big cheeks, little chubby cheeks, dimples, and now you want me to play the cello? Oh my goodness. There was a lot of verbal abuse in the house, a lot of physical abuse in the house. So my self-esteem wasn't great growing up. My mom never really shared that she loved us. She showed us she loved us by providing a house and food on the table, and lights when we could afford them, water when we could afford it. But, as far as the affection, my mom just wasn't an affectionate woman. So that was that love I was missing. And, my mom, her best, answer to anything that I did that she didn't like was go get me that extension cord. So there was that physical abuse of, anything I did wrong, I'm going to get these lashes with this extension cord. And you would think I would be a perfect kid, with that type of punishment. But I just could not seem to get it right. I don't know why. I would, like, after these beatings, I would say to myself, like, Derrick, why do you keep doing this, dude? Like, why? Oh my God. And then I'd be mad at God, like, God, why you put me in this family? And you heard me screaming for you, God. You heard me yelling, like, God, please make her stop. And God, you not answering my prayers. Like, you answering her prayers. Cause my mom would say, God, give me the strength. And it seemed like he would give her the strength to keep going. And I just did not understand how God, in one hand, could be this picture of Jesus in the church holding this little lamb, right? Looking all calm and holding a little lamb. And I'm looking like, man, I wish I was that little lamb. Cause cause in my life, it was like, oh my gosh, it was nothing compared to that picture. So I figured like, man, I must be so bad that even God don't want to hear my prayers. Like, I must be that bad. My oldest sister, she showed me what it looks like to suffer from an illness like we got. And you would think, seeing the interaction between my oldest sister and my mom, you would think that that would deter me from experimenting with anything. You would think. Give you an example. I remember one night, my sister, she would disappear for long periods of time. And one night I remember hearing a knock on our window, and I look, and it's my sister. I'm like, we haven't seen her in probably 3 years. And I'm like excited. She's home. We're going to get back to the family unit. Like, yes, everything's going to be great. And she climbs in through the window. And I wondered why she didn't knock on the front door. That kind of made me wonder, but it just didn't register. I'm a little kid. It didn't register. So she climbs in through the window, and I'm like, and I'm like excited. She's like, shh, 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 shh. And I'm like, okay. So I'm like, here, you can get in my bed and you can sleep in my bed. And she was like, hold on, wait, I'm gonna go say hi to mama. And I'm like, okay, okay. And she goes in my mom's room, and I'm waiting for her to say hi to my mom. And I hear this: put my insurance money back in my jar. Put my insurance money back in the jar. And I'm like, is mama saying hi? Or what is going on? And she runs out of my mom's room and throws the money on the floor, under my clothes. And my mom jumps out of bed, runs in the room, and she's like, where you put my money? That's my insurance money. I don't have any money. I need to pay my insurance. Because my mom was, at the time, she had stage 4 breast cancer. And she had to pay for her medical insurance. And my sister, who I thought was coming home, and we were back in the family unit, was stealing my mom's money for her medical attention, And my mom got so violent. My mom attacked my sister, and blood was everywhere. And the police came. And I'm just shocked. What I thought was going to be a family reunion has turned into a full-on Jerry Springer episode right there in my room. The blood was in the carpet forever. And you would think that would deter me. Seeing that my sister was showing me, like, Derrick, this is what this life looks like. This is what it looks like. They arrested my sister, full blood. I mean, it was almost like when I used to watch wrestling and their heads would be like, I mean, and that's the only thing I could describe it as that much blood as a kid from my sister at the hands of my mother. So I was terrified. I was like, God, why would you put me in a family like this? Like, God, why don't you hear my prayers? Like, help me, save me, God. And when I was 14, God answered my prayer. My mom died of breast cancer. Now, that was the most painful, difficult thing I had ever experienced in my life. Yet I felt relieved. I felt relieved because I didn't have to go through that abuse no more. I didn't have to get that verbal abuse no more. I didn't have to walk around on eggshells. But my mom was gone. Where were we going to live? How are we going to survive? Who's going to take care of us? And I remember sitting out on the front porch and my boy Dave came across the street and he was like, say, D, it's going to be all right, man. You got $1? And I was like, yeah, I got $1. He was like, let's go to the candy house, man. And I remember like, bro, I don't much feel like candy, but okay. And the candy house lady knew me. I told you I was a chubby kid, looked like a Cabbage Patch with dimples. She knew me. You know, I had probably put a couple of her kids through college, you know, because I visited a little candy house so much. And I found out the candy house lady was a bootleg. You know, I never knew. I didn't, again, just total gullible, not knowing nothing about what's going on in my neighborhood because my mom wanted me to have no parts of the neighborhood. So we walk in her house and she looks at me and she sees me in tears and my face just all reddish because I've been crying so hard because my mom's gone. And she looks at me and she's like, baby, we don't have no Snickers. And Dave was like, we don't want Snickers. We want some 40 ounces. And she was like, oh, okay. They $1. So we give her our dollars. And she's like, they in the backyard. And I go in the backyard. I didn't even know this lady had a backyard. And they were partying. I had never seen it was my first time being introduced to a house hood party. I'd never seen anything like this. I'm walking around and people were dancing. They were smoking weed. They were singing. They were like having a great time. And I'm sitting there like, oh my goodness. And I'm nervous because I ain't never been around nothing like this, you know? And so Dave reaches in the cooler, he get his 40. I reach in the cooler like Dave, and I pull me a 40 ounce out. And I thought one of those adults was going to be like, hey, little man, put that back in there. Get out of this backyard. This ain't for kids. But they didn't. They were like giving me thumbs up, like everything was okay. And it felt okay. It felt all right. It felt like I was a part of life at last. Oh my goodness. And I'm walking back to Dave's house thinking, man, I've been missing out on everything. Like, this is what life is about right here. And I cracked the seal on that 40 ounce like I seen those grown men do in my neighborhood. And I took a big chug of it like I saw the cool people do, you know? And I was like, is this what y'all been drinking? This is the worst stuff. This is the worst. It tastes like this. This tastes like gorilla piss, you know? And okay, because I know my boy Kevin. Look, Kevin, let's get this straight. I ain't never drank Gorilla Pee, bro. Don't call me with these Gorilla Pee jokes after we get out of this meeting, bro. Don't call me with the jokes, bro. And look, but I'm sure Old English 800 tastes like Gorilla Pee. I'm sure it do. I'm positive. And I remember something in me was like, chill out, D. Chill out. Just be a part of it. Don't embarrass yourself. Don't embarrass yourself. Drink till it's gone. And I chugged that 40 ounce. I chugged it and chugged it and chugged it and chugged it and chugged it. And man, it was like my whole life just came to a I found something that had me in its grips and had took me from point A to point B at 100 miles an hour. I had arrived. And y'all know what I'm talking about, that feel of ease and comfort that comes at once. It was there. And that was my relationship with it. I lived with different families to graduate high school, you know. And after after that moment, I had stopped drinking. And the reason I stopped drinking was because I needed a place to live, you know. And most of the families I were living with until I met one family, they didn't do that type of stuff. One family I lived with, he was a military guy. Another family I lived with, they were just churchgoers, but this one family I lived with, they were all, it was all boys in the house, just one girl, 5 boys, 1 girl, and they were bloods. Their dad sold crack, and I everything in that house that I participated in, from the gang activities to the selling of crack to going to reclaim things that were stolen from the house from crack addicts, everything I did not want to do. I remember crying after one situation where I witnessed something that still haunts my imagination today. I remember crying and saying, I want my mama. Like, God, just bring my mom back. Bring her back. Just please bring her back. Because I was terrified. My mom didn't raise me like that. But here I was catapulted into this life. The money was great. The money was great. So I moved quickly away from that family, and moved in with my cousin. And I started gospel rapping, actually. That put the fear of God, witnessing what I witnessed, put the fear of God in me. And I started gospel rapping. And we started touring with some major gospel artists. And that led me all the way up into my 20s. And I had my son. And the money I was making with the gospel rap and working, it just didn't seem like enough money to get by, And all the hustlers that I grew up with, my friends from high school that were hustling, those guys were like making serious money, driving wonderful cars, the allure of the life. Jay-Z got a song called Allure. The allure of the life pulled me back in. I got a 6-figure job and I started hustling weed, and I mean, money was no object. That same sister I was stealing from my mom, I took care of her, throwing money at her, flooding her with money. She didn't have to want for nothing, I let her live with me for a little bit, until she could get back on her feet because she got out of prison. And I let her live with me for a little bit, and I started partying hard. I mean, hard. I'm talking about like it went from Monday, Tuesday, parties, strip club parties, hanging out with, hanging out with people who, again, I was terrified to hang out with. I remember one time me and my friends, we went to a gentleman's club in Dallas called UTB, and UTB stands for Under the Bridge, right? So you can kind of guess what type of establishment this was we were venturing into, right? So we go into UTB, and my boy Matt said, man, you know what? They didn't even pat me down when I walked in here. Did they pat you down, Macho? And my boy Macho was like, nah, they didn't pat me down either. D, you get patted down? I was like, no. It was like, man, we could have bought our guns in here. And I'm like, y'all left y'all's in the car? Because again, I was so terrified to be in that environment and in that type of lifestyle, but it was beautiful to me. It was gorgeous. I mean, I was with some of the most major drug dealers in Dallas, some of the most talented rappers in Dallas. Dallas was like growing. I was watching my city come alive, and I was a part of it. I was there. I remember we had a comedian that was rising to the top named Roy Lee. Roy Lee was just, man, I mean, we just saw him like from our hood, just going. Our friend Trap Boy Freddie, young dude Mo 3, we watching these dudes develop and Yellow Beezy, we watching Big Tuck. I went to high school. We watching them come alive. We watching Dallas finally grow and become the city that New York, as far as the music industry and the live of the energy of New York. LA, we're watching LA, and now Dallas is doing it, and I'm a part of it. Like, yeah, I'm a part of life at last, you know? I'm making trips from Dallas to Denver, bringing back weed that they never smoked before. Gorilla Glue was like not even heard of at the time. I'm bringing Gorilla Glue to Dallas. Derrick. Everybody, oh, we're going to LA. No, I'm bringing a whole, and again, I was the guy to see. Man, I get a DWI and a possessions charge. See, the DWI meant that six-figure job that I had, gone. So I'm like, I got to beat this case. I got to. My thinking. But I got to get good and drunk in order to do what I need to do to get my money to beat this case. So I go to my best friend's house. He owes me $2,800 for some pounds I fronted him. And he knew I didn't need the money because I had a six-figure job. So he's been holding on to this $2,800 for at least 6 months. Now it's time to collect. And I was terrified of my best friend because he was the hothead of the group. He was the one, you step on his Jordans, he gonna fight you. You can guarantee it. He'll probably kill you, And I was terrified of that, a guy with a high head like that, So I go over there, and I figured it wasn't a bad idea if I go over there with my Glock. And somehow, during this transaction of me asking him for my $2,800, I just started shooting at him. And I emptied my entire clip. I had an extension clip, 25 shots at my best friend in a blackout. Didn't even realize I did it. See, the life had pulled me in. That's what I was thinking. This life had pulled me in. And now I'm doing crazy stuff. And now I'm doing stuff I never thought I'd do. And I'm becoming a guy that my mom didn't raise me to be. And the hood loved it. That was sick. That's what I did not understand. I was like, how are they loving me now? When I was the good guy, the good kid, they were like, doing the great thing. But here I am with this violent gun charge, threw my life away down the garbage. Now the city loves me, I became homeless, unemployable, all in that one situation. One of my friends who that I lived with, from the family I lived with, I called him and told him, like, my sister had just kicked me out of her house in Arlington, and I called him and he was like, well, dude, you can stay in one of my trap houses. I can't let you stay in my house because my wife is not gonna let you be here, but you can stay in one of the trap houses, and you can hustle for me, and that's how you can make your little money. And I said, okay, that don't sound like a bad idea, again. And I drank so much during that time that I vaguely remember anything. And I remember my sister calling me and saying, where you at? Now this was the sister with the episode with my mom. Paula called me and said, where you at? I said, oh, I'm over here in the cliff. And she was like, you in the cliff? What you doing in the cliff? I heard Tab kicked you out. I said, yeah, I'm staying with Sid. And she knew Sid sold drugs. So she was like, no, you don't. I'm coming to get you right now. She got in the car and she said, Derrick, you're gonna end up in prison for the rest of your life, Derrick. Do you not see where your life is going? See, I don't know if y'all can relate, but when you in that life and you in the thick of it, I mean, gunning, running and gunning, you think you flying, right? And flying and falling feels the same way. It feels the same way until you hit the ground. We moved to Victoria, Texas, and I thought I was going to be all right down there. I was looking for connects to start back selling weed, start back hustling. And I started drinking again. And after a crazy night of drinking, I came to the next day and my family was looking at me like this. And I was like, what's up? And they was like, you don't know what you did last night. And I was like, no. Well, first of all, you called every woman in this house out their name. And I was like, no, I didn't. And they're like, yes, you did, Derrick. And not just that, you did it with your AK-47, walking through this house back and forth like a tiger with your AK-47 in your hand, cursing all of us out our names. My life was spiraling, but I thought I was flying. I thought, yeah, that's what we do. That's what we do, And she was like, Derrick, I think you're an alcoholic. And I'm going to take you to AA. And I was like, man, whatever. I was like, whatever. And I went begrudgingly, and I thought they were going to come in with me, but they just dropped me off at that parking lot and took off. I was like, what? Like, y'all gonna come here with me? I'm like, Paula, you sick too? Like, come on, you a crack addict. You need to go in here and get some of this too, don't you? And, man, I came into that meeting and I was terrified. Like the clubhouse smelled like the intake of the jail. That bleachy clean smell, And then, they was offering me coffee. And the last time I was offered coffee was in an interrogation room, So I'm like, I don't know about these people in this place, It's kind of weird, And I was just waiting for them to go up there and tell me to go to that podium and say, what were you doing at this time? Testify on who you was with, what you was doing, how much you drank, And I mean, just had all these crazy ideas about what I was walking into. But it was weird because y'all was showing me so much love. Y'all was showing me love that my family has stopped showing me. You know, the same people I was kicking out money to when when I had it, I now was the bum taking up space on the couch. You know, the same people I was taking care of when the life was good, I now was trash too. They was talking about me like I wasn't even their brother and their uncle. Like I couldn't believe it. And y'all told me, Derrick, you don't have to live like that no more. And it broke my heart because I always thought that was life. That's the life I have to live. That's how I have to live. And y'all told me that I was probably suffering from something which only a power greater than myself could help me overcome. And I knew I was in trouble because God didn't like me. We established that when I was a kid. Like, God didn't like me. How am I going to get through this? I don't have a chance. So y'all would say, pray and ask God to help you. And I would pray. And I would get these urges. And I would succumb to the urges. And I would be like, well, I guess this is what God wants me to do. Because apparently he didn't stop me. He didn't send a thunderbolt down to stop me from going to get it. So I guess this is what God wants me to do. And I spiraled in the rooms. I suffered in the rooms. You know? You know that poem about footsteps where, this guy walking on the beach and he sees these two footsteps? For me, I could understand that poem and get that poem. But when I saw those two footsteps side by side, I didn't think it was God walking with me. I thought it was me stepping over here, then getting in God's spot and stepping in God's spot, then me stepping back over here and getting back in my spot and then going back to God's spot. And then when I looked and I saw the footsteps from behind, I was going in circles, not even going forward. And it's like the waves of life just washed over me, man. And I was ready to end it all. My sobriety day, July 18th of 2020. I'm so grateful for that day. I'm so grateful for that day because July 17th was supposed to be my death date. And the waves of life just crashed over me. And I look back at those footprints and I only saw one set of footprints that whole time. And that's when I realized that God was carrying me the whole time. He knew, Derrick, I'm going to put you in a family. It's going to be weird. It's going to be weird, man. Your mom's going to die. You're going to go through some crazy experience with other families. You're going to have a level of success. You ain't going to know how to handle it. And it's all going to come crashing down again. And then it's going to rise back up. But you're going to trust me the whole time. And that's what I did. I got me a sponsor. And I was ready. The first step, it really took an act of God for me to understand the first step because I suffered from it so long. It took God to show me that my life was unmanageable. I never would have looked at it from that perspective. Never would I. It took God to compel me to believe that God could restore me to sanity. Because I didn't think I was insane. And y'all would tell me stuff like, Oh, you insane because you keep picking up the first one, or you insane because you keep running back to the burning house, burning barn. You insane because you keep doing it when you plumb sober, when you plumb nothing in your system, you keep going back to it. That's insanity. But it took God to paralyze the liar in me in order for me to see it. And not just see that he could restore me to insanity because he has the power to do it, but because he had so much goodness awaiting me. So much goodness. When I was a kid, people used to say, God is good, all the time, all the time. But I never had an experience with the goodness of God till I met y'all. And it seems like when I realized how good God was, and I realized that God had me the whole time, I was ready to turn my will and my life over to the care of God. Because I knew that no matter what I did, if it was God's will for me, it was the best thing that could have ever happened to my life. I remember I was sitting on the porch one day in meditation, and I was thinking about, like, Derrick, what if God wants you to shave all your hair off and be a Buddhist monk in the Tibetan mountains? And I remember I surrendered to that idea. I said, well, if that's the case, it's going to be the best thing that's ever happened to my life. It will be the best thing, you know? And I went through the process. I picked up a pen. I started writing resentments, you know? And I had some deep rooted resentments. I had some ancestral resentments. You can look at me and tell that one of the greatest resentments I had in me. Yep. Racism. Like, you want to see Derrick go, you wanted to see the old Derrick go insane real quick. Call him that word. Call him that word and see how quick he would get his pistol and threaten your life. And I remember my sponsor looking at me, and he broke it down to me. He asked me, we looked at where I had been selfish with that term, where I had been self-seeking, where I had been dishonest, where I had been frightened. And then he said, hey, D, let's look at that. You see the ism on the end of racism? I said, yeah. He said, well, you got it with your alcoholism, don't you? You got that ism on your alcoholism, don't you? And I said, God dang it, I do. And he said, you know you sick, right? And I said, yeah. He said, can you see a racist person as being sick too? And it broke my heart, y'all. It broke my heart. It made me feel sorry. Like, it really gave, like, I felt sorry for racist people all of a sudden. Like, I don't know how that happened. Only God could do that, man. Like, I don't know how that happened, but I felt sorry for them. I'm like, God dang, they sick. I ain't never looked at them as being sick. I looked at them as being some other stuff, like some other words that, I tried not to use, but sick. And he was like, you got a whole prayer on page 67 for him now, don't you? I was like, God, I sure do. This is a sick man. How can I be helpful to him? Sometimes me being helpful to him mean me getting out their way. Sometimes, you know, God save me from being angry, because only God can. Thy will be done. You know, it's amazing. It's another type of feeling and another type of energy when Your sponsor can look at you in your face, and he was a good old boy. He looked at you in your face and he said, Derrick, now we've done this fifth step. You can walk out of this room a free black man, or you can walk out this room a free son of God. Which one you want to be? See, that second one hit harder. That second one kind of makes my back straighten up again. It makes me look you in the eye better, knowing that I'm a son of God. That hits different. It makes it makes my smile a little bit more brighter. It makes my Y5s hit a little stronger. If I'm that second one, that son of, hey, then we was off to make amends. I remember making amends to my boy, Yundi's mom. I remember me and Yundi was out hustling one day, and his mom was blowing his phone up. And we get to Yundi's mom's house, and she is cussing us out. She was like livid. She thought I was a bad influence on Yundi's life. And really, yeah, I probably was. But again, I didn't have no parents. I didn't have nobody I had to answer to. So, I was out there just living. But I remember she was so happy to see us walk in the door and cussing us out so bad because we didn't pick up the phone, because she saw a car flip over and it looked like Yundi's car. So she thought we were dead. And Yundi's girlfriend killed him. Yundi was a player, and his girlfriend killed him. And I had to make my amends to her after the funeral, at the repast. And I remember going up to her, asking her, like, Mama D, what was the hardest thing you had to do? Give birth to Yundi or bury Yundi? And Mama D looked me in my face and told me something that shakes the core of my mind now to think about it. She said, probably giving birth. And I said, why you say that, Mama D? She said, because I didn't plan on having Yundi. Yundi kind of was a surprise. When I found out I was pregnant, I was surprised that I was pregnant, She said, Derrick, but the way y'all was living y'all life, I had been planning on going to one of y'all funerals for a while. Yeah. Wow, baby. And she said, so I heard you in college now. I was like, yeah, Mama D, I'm in college. She said, baby, whatever you doing that's got you not going to jail and going to college, keep doing that. Keep doing that, baby. That's all I want from you. That's how you can make it right. Keep doing that. And I remember when I got my associate's degree, I called her. It was the day after Mother's Day. And I called her, and she didn't answer the phone. And I was like, oh, man, maybe Mama D going through, because, it's Mother's Day, her first Mother's Day without Yundi. Maybe she going through. But something says, why don't you call Yundi's phone? Because Mama D was still paying Yundi's bills to hear his voicemail. And I said, okay. I called Yundi's phone. She picked right up. Hey, Derrick, how you doing? Happy Mother's Day, Mama D. Hey, guess what, Mama D? What? I just graduated with an associate's degree. Baby, you did what? And her laugh was so brilliant. See, they say we'll experience a new happiness and a new freedom. And to hear her laugh with so much joy, she said, I know Yundi up there like, that's my boy D. My boy D done got him a degree, man. See, this fellowship and what y'all did for my life, I just can't really explain it in words. It's an experience. And the most beautiful experience y'all gave me was a relationship with this power out there. This power that's so big, it can fill the entire universe. And so small that it can fit between atoms and hold the steel prosaic girder together. That's the power. And it's so good. It's so good that I don't want to miss a second of it. You know, there's this guy in another book that talks about, you know, the God of his understanding. And he said the God of his understanding was a shepherd. And he said because the God of his understanding is a shepherd, he ain't got to want for nothing. He said this power allows him to lie down in green pastures. And that brought me to my 10th step, where y'all told me in them promises, I will cease fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol. He laid me down. Sometimes he got to fort Derrick lay down. These is green pastures, bro. You don't got to fight over here, bro. You ain't got to bring your gun over here, Derrick. Lay down. These are green pastures. But I get it now. It hits different. See, y'all told me on page 55 of this big book, y'all told me, y'all said, deep down inside every man, woman, and child is the fundamental idea of God, right? So when I met that power that I just described, y'all helped me realize that when I was a kid and I heard the scripture say, greater he that is in you than he that is in the world, that this power that was in me was so great that I didn't have to get thirsty no more. I didn't have to get squirrely no more. I didn't have to get them urges anymore. I didn't have to want to fiend for nothing no more. Because this power within me was great than anything outside of me. You know, I'm so grateful. And that moves me over to the 11th step. Real quick. The 11th step. Oh, I see my time. Here we go. The 11th step, you know, there's a meditation I do. It's a breathing exercise. My wife, she's Jewish, and me studying with the Torah and, you know, cause I learned from all religions, y'all. All religions teach me stuff. And it's disrespectful to spell the name God, you know, and they believe that the closest thing you can do to say God's name is when you inhale and exhale. So I do this breathing treatment to keep me centered and grounded closer to this presence, this all-powerful presence. And it helps me realize that whether I'm conscious of it or not, from the day I was born and took my first breath till the day I die and let out my last breath, I will be constantly trying to utter the name of God, whether I realize it or not, with each breath I take. And that brings me to the 12th step. You know, what I realized is this spiritual awakening that I experienced was me really and truly seeing my biggest problem that I ever faced in my entire life, which was my disconnect from God. So once I reconnected, the joy I experienced, the happiness I experienced, the freedom I experienced, I got to give that away, y'all. I'm telling you, I got to. If you haven't had an experience or realized that the all-seeing eye has you in his scope, I'm going to tell you like this. God loves you so much, he can't take his eyes off of you. And I don't know who needed to hear that, but I know there was a point I needed to hear that, you know? So if you are here today, you are here not just because you didn't use right or you didn't drink right. You are here because that power knows you can carry the message of a spiritual awakening to people who won't even listen to their moms, who won't listen to their dads, who won't listen to their husband, who won't listen to their children. They'll listen to you. You. Yeah, you. I'm talking to you. Yep, you. You can. So keep on. You're going through this process, keep on. Keep on. Because again, look, there's a lot of people out there that need our help. And you are uniquely qualified to carry a message. And I know some of y'all might be here early in your recovery, early in your journey, and still wondering, hey, is this thing for me? Well, don't sit too long on the first step. I'm going to tell you that right now. That's a dark, dark step. No hope in the first step. Don't sit too long there. And join us. We shall be with you in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge this road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you. Until then, thanks for letting me be of service, y'all.